welcome to a very special episode of the Hearties Hotline. I am Cammie, the Hooked Heartie, and I have Mini Heartie on one side, and I have Grandma Heartie on the other. We are bringing you 3 generations of Hearties today. This is the only time that we have done this, so very special episode, and it is the last episode before the finale. And, you know, what we wanted to happen didn't happen. It better happen. And
they do it that way to keep us coming.
I need that ring.
Sarah, my faithful friend and podcast co-host, could not be with us today, so I made family do it.
Yeah,
we're glad to do it.
Yeah, you're glad to do it, right?
Because we are Hearties from a long time.
Yes, Hearties straight to the heart, right?
That's right.
Hearties to the core. All right, we are, of course, talking about Season 13, Episode 11, Trials, Trails, and Tribulations. Say that 3 times fast. Trials, Trails, Tribulations. Trials, Trails, I didn't do the ands, but I can kind of do it. All right, so first of all, let's talk about those words that are in the title. We've got trials, trails, and tribulations. First of all, I think it's really cool the way if you just switch a couple of letters, you got trials and then trails. So, Liddy, why trials, trails, and tribulations?
First of all, the trials are there because we had the big trail.
Well, and they're in a courtroom.
The trial.
Yeah, she's kidding.
We got the big trial of whether
Got the big trial
of whether the transformer started the fire.
Correct. Okay, why trails?
I have an answer to that.
Oh, Grandma Heartie,
I think it looks at the different paths that each person chooses to take. I mean, Christopher's gone. He's taken a trail that's no one knows where he is. And each person, you know, why did the corporation go the trail they did? Why did each person do what they did and follow the path that they chose? And why did they choose them?
That's impressive. I just thought that they were referring to the trail up to Parsons Peak.
Oh, well, maybe they were.
that LJ wants to go up.
Mm-hmm.
But hey, that's deep. That's deep thinking.
That's the English major.
Yeah. She taught me everything she knows. All right, and then tribulations. I think the big one comes from Henry's talk on the radio, because he says something beautiful when he's talking to Christopher. Yes, I wrote it down. That's what Cammie does. It takes a lot to, quote, crawl one's way out of the dark. And if there's anyone who knows about that, it's Henry. And he is trying to make sure that his son does not go in as deep as he did, so that he doesn't have to crawl out as much. You know, I've been watching some old episodes, doing some research, and it is really amazing what Henry has gone through. I was at the episode where Lee asked Henry to be Goldie's godfather, and he's on his way to tell Lee no, and he meets Elizabeth outside her house, and she starts naming all of these ways that he has saved people, and he doesn't think of it as saving people. And it's just really beautiful seeing what Henry has done when he used to be such a terrible antagonist, when he used to be the #1 villain. All right, so we're going to do things a little bit differently. We're going to cover the episode through a series of questions. So, first of all, the asters. The favorite flower of Elizabeth. Now, I have one point of consistency. But I also have a way out of it. In season 1, Elizabeth says that violets are her favorite flower. But I think you're allowed to change your mind in 13 years. So and they're still purple. I know that Grandma Heartie over here had something she wanted to say about the asters.
Well, it's interesting that it's the last bloom of the season, and we're and obviously that coordinates with the last final episode of the season, and that's where we are. And so it's leading us into with flowers and beauty, the conclusion of the all of the events and what's going to happen based on this beautiful bouquet of flowers.
And hopefully Nathan's going to pop that last question of the season.
And will he have asters in his hand?
Well, they're on his table.
Yeah,
so
there you go.
Mary.
Yeah.
So, Grandma Heartie, what's your favorite flower?
Well, it's always been roses.
Yes. Do you have a particular color?
I've liked all of the colors, but I guess over the years, probably red roses stood out the most. But I like all colors of roses.
All right, roses. Mini Heartie.
Purple roses.
Purple roses. Now,
I don't know if they exist, but they're my favorite.
No, I've seen them. Now, are we talking about deep purple or lavender?
Deep purple.
Deep purple. I don't know if I've seen those. I have seen lavender roses. Okay, for me, for Hooked Heartie, my favorite, I have two because I cannot pick. My favorite is roses, pink and then tipped, very dark pink at the top. You'll see up here, this is my wedding bouquet, and it's got it's got a pink rose, it's got a dark pink rose, it's got a deep purple rose for you, and it's got coral roses. I love coral roses. Also, my favorite flower is lilies. I love lilies. All right, so next question. Nathan said that he was waiting for the asters to bloom for Operation Forever and Always to be a go. How long was that ring burning a hole in his pocket, Grandma Heartie?
It seems like a very long time. The hole is very big.
Well, technically, the ring wasn't there because he had bought it after the asters bloomed.
No, he did not buy it after the asters bloomed. He bought it in the episode before.
That's right.
He's taking a chance on losing it. I mean, really. You just can't keep something that valuable around for a long time without misplacing it. So he's done a good job that he still has it.
He's probably going to lose it in the next episode.
Oh, gosh, I hope not.
That's going to be the cliffhanger.
Oh, please, no. Oh, that just makes me want to cry. Okay. So now, follow-up question to that ring question. Did Elizabeth suspect Nathan was going to propose? Yes or no?
Absolutely. She's got a smirk on her face the whole time.
I think she knows something's happening. She does not just think that, oh, I wonder if this is just completely normal. He's probably just gave me some flowers. So like she knows something big is about to happen, but maybe the specific engagement hasn't crossed her mind yet.
Okay.
Except really and truly, what other big thing could happen that's any bigger than him proposing to her?
A really big date?
A really big date? Oh, okay. Tell me what happens on that date.
That's bigger than a proposal.
Yeah.
They do a really long kiss.
Oh, the innocence of Mini Heartie. I am torn because when dinner was actually happening, I don't think that she thought anything was going to happen. But when he starts referring back to dinner and he says, Elizabeth at dinner, and she kind of takes a deep breath, can we try again tomorrow? That's where I wonder if she had an inkling that he was going to propose, and she did not want to be proposed to at that point because she was very upset by everything that happened with LJ. And by the way, I think these two will agree with me. Allie would not have interrupted that meal unless it was a huge emergency, because she knew what was going on.
And she wants it to happen.
And she desperately wants it to happen. She kept on saying, the trial needs to be over so we can move on. And is the trial over yet? How's it going?
Poor Allie, she must feel like it's her fault that they never proposed. She must feel guilty, though.
She probably does, but just like what Nathan said to her at the very end, it's never too late, right?
The Asters.
All right. Before we move on to something else, there is something that has been driving me crazy, and I need your help, Hearties. And these two didn't have the answer. So, all right. The first instance of the Asters, I went back to season 10 and I started watching and I started looking for things that were happening between Nathan and Elizabeth. I got to season 10, episode 8, What Is and What Should Never Be, and that's where apple juice happened for the first time. And that's when apple juice became a thing between Nathan and Elizabeth. And that's when they have the really big conversation that Faith broke things off with Nathan, and maybe he's not cut out for love and he might give up on love. And then he walks out of her house and he kind of does that, what was that moment? But then when they're at dinner, Nathan says, "You remember?" And Elizabeth says, "Of course, the day this all happened." And he said, "For you, maybe." And I thought, wait a minute. When did Asters happen before this? So please, I beg of you, end my misery. Nicole, if you're out there watching, you're probably gloating because you know the answer. But it was driving me crazy. And I looked and looked and looked, and maybe I fell asleep at just the right moment when it happened. I don't know. But I could not find it. So please, please, end my misery, put me out of my misery, and tell me when that happened. I beg of you. But something else that I did notice, and I was very cognizant of, was when Elizabeth said, "When did it start for you?" Nathan has this little habit of answering questions with another question. He did it in the end of season 11. "Are you asking me if I believe in fate?" And so now he says, "Are you asking me when I first knew that I was falling for you?" And it's the exact same kind of thing. He answers a question with a question. And then, of course, she says yes. And then he finally gets around to the answer. Now, who called it? Because, oh, no. But I'd say, yes, I did call it. But who else called it that this was when Nathan first fell for Elizabeth? Because watching that episode for the first time, Lucas had just had the interaction with her with Allie gambling, and he got that, ooh, she's a feisty one, soft spot smile on his face. And then Nathan is summoned to the school, and Elizabeth starts talking to Allie about being a good friend and having good friends. And then Nathan looks up at her, and I said, there it is. They're both falling in love with her. So I knew from the get-go when we were watching that episode that that's when Nathan fell for Elizabeth. But was there ever a question that there was a different moment when he actually fell? Or
no, I agree.
No? That
maybe when he set eyes on her.
When he set eyes on her. You know, you actually bring up a really good point, because when he first set eyes on her, he had taken the post to protect her. So do you think that he even had romance on his mind, or do you think he was too guilt-ridden and too bent on protecting her?
A little bit of both.
You think a little bit of both? I think he definitely could have said, "Ooh, pretty girl."
It's hard not to be attracted to her.
Yeah, that's how boys mind switch.
Short hair, long hair, whatever. She's gorgeous either way. Who else noticed that they had wine for the first time that I've seen them have wine? They've always had apple juice. It's a very innocent relationship, just like we said last time. It's a very innocent relationship. They have apple juice to celebrate, and apple juice is their special drink. Too bad that the very grown-up question of proposing didn't happen with the very grown-up beverage.
I wonder if something happened with the apple juice.
They ran out of apple juice, so he resorted to wine.
You always keep apple juice on you.
Oh, always keep apple juice on hand. So, but to justice being served, that was the toast. I think they said that about 3 times in the episode. I can think of twice right off the bat. Georgie said it to Rosie when she was saying, "I'm just here to make sure that justice is served." And then Nathan says it when he says, "Let's toast." So, but yes, justice was a very, very big theme for today, wasn't it? Okay. We're going to go to that topic of justice. There are several mini topics about justice. Number 1, the drip test being thrown out. What do you think about the drip test being thrown out? That Rosemary was the plant and that she gave the wrong information about Laveau Farms, which was incredibly clever. And then National Insurance told Pioneer Electric. The judge considers it inadmissible in court and throws it out, saying that it's entrapment.
I wanted to say thank you, Judge.
What do you think, Liddy?
Really? It's proof.
Seriously, why is that not considered proof? We haven't really done a lot of talking about this on the podcast because we've been too busy discussing other matters that are much more important, like matters of the heart. So much more important than matters of the courtroom, right? In this case, we got to get past one before we can attend to the other, right? But talk about a huge scandal. You have an insurance company and their client, an electric company, working in cahoots together to swindle hundreds of people who are regular, ordinary people who do not make that much money
and are destitute because of fire that was caused by the company.
And are destitute because of that fire, and they're trying to swindle them out of thousands of dollars, which back in the 20s is not jump change. Yeah. I cannot believe the gall of these two companies. I mean, talk about David versus Goliath. No offense, Bill, but I could not believe that these two companies were in cahoots together to try to swindle all of these honest, hardworking people who had lost everything. And really? You're embarrassed? So you're not going to try to pay them back? You're just going to try to cover it all up? Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. So yes, I agreed 100% with what Nathan said, that they were not being enticed to do anything illegal. That's the definition of entrapment. They did the illegal thing all on their own. Rosemary just gave them false information. That's the evidence. And I have seen this used so many times in so many other court cases. Why not now? Why not now? Why wouldn't they use the drip test? Can you think of a decent reason that they wouldn't use that drip test?
A clueless judge.
Clueless judge, yeah.
Maybe it's because Electric or Pioneer Electric paid off the judge.
Yeah, but if that had happened, then he wouldn't have said guilty in the end.
Unless Nathan and Bill paid him more money.
Nathan and Bill are very honest. They wouldn't bribe an official.
Unless they knew that it was the truth.
But unless the judge suddenly realized there's no escaping this and I better do it right. Because if I don't, then this is a scandal and I'll lose my position.
That is true. That is true, because that's what happened in season 2 with the mines. That judge almost gave in to bribery, but you couldn't get past the proof. So when Christopher shows up, just like Bill says, that kid knows how to make an entrance.
Yeah.
So
that was very cool how they did that.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. That was the clincher. There had to be a clincher because you're at an impasse. You've got the company, you've got the victims, and you've got the judge who's wavering in the wrong direction. And so something dramatic has to happen, and it has to be Christopher with his hands full of evidence.
Full of evidence. And the best part about Christopher's entrance was that Mr. Saxon, the defense attorney, was right in the middle of saying, we have a greater duty to the truth. And then in walks Christopher with the actual truth rather than the truth that Saxton was trying to sell, which was ridiculous. And he says, am I too late? I mean, talk about an entrance, and he's covered in dirt and sweat. Everything I said in my testimony is true, Your Honor, and I'll tell anyone who needs to hear it. And that is when, if the judge was taking a bribe, like the two of you said, that is when he says, I can't get out of this.
No, that money isn't worth losing my job.
Because then he loses a whole lot of money.
He probably rethought a lot of his life choices.
Say that louder so we can hear you.
He probably rethought a lot of his life choices.
He probably did.
Is that like having your life pass before you just before death? Because he was just about ready to commit suicide as a judge.
Political suicide.
Political suicide, and so it all flashed before his eyes, just like you said, Liddy. And he thought, I better fess up. Only I can't take responsibility for the fact that I'm wavering, but I can do the right thing.
Okay, let's talk about Christopher for a moment. So we've kind of alluded to the fact that Christopher is a young Henry. He's taking after his father, and his father is desperately trying to not have him end up where he was. And if you remember, I don't know if you two have heard this, so we've got a whole Christmas Carol scenario going on here, because Christopher is Scrooge and Henry is Marley.
Ah.
And Henry is warning Christopher, do not be like I was. Now, thankfully, Henry was able to make amends and repent and fix things while he was still alive. So he's not suffering eternal torment right now. But he knows that his son is headed that direction. And so he is doing everything in his power to keep him from going in that direction. So when Henry takes Christopher to the burn site, Christopher calls it a miracle. Henry says, no, time and work and a lot of it. I say it's all three. What do you ladies say?
Yep, I agree with you.
I would say it's time, work, and community.
The miracle of community? Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah, definitely. Everybody's come together and the truth is going to win out.
Mm-hmm. Also, I just want to talk about the miracle of those two boys for a second, Toby and Cooper. They thought that they were responsible. It had not been proved. And they tried to replant that entire area by themselves. And so that's a miracle in and of itself, that two teenage boys were able to think outside themselves. And we'll get to that in a second. And then it does take a lot of time and a lot of work. But see, Christopher wasn't there to see it because he fled. And I really loved what Nathan said, because Christopher apologized to Nathan, saying, "I'm sorry that I disappeared. You didn't feel safe. That was my job." Speaking of which, side note, we still don't know who tried to run Christopher and Nathan off the road.
No.
Oh,
we don't.
I think it's the Spanish guy.
No, that was disproved.
How?
Because he was helping Lucas and Edie get a horse. And it was happening at the exact same time.
It's probably someone from Pioneer Electric.
Yeah, I would agree, but
Or Edwin.
We're kind of left to decide for ourselves. And with the outcome of the trial, we assume it was the company.
Oh, completely.
I
Yeah.
think it might be Edwin.
No, it's not Edwin.
never liked
He's crafty, but he's not dastardly.
Been disproved.
Oh my goodness. But I don't know that they are going to reveal that. It's possible that we might find out, but I don't think it's crucial to the story, which is sad, because I would have liked to find out and have Nathan go in and arrest him and all of that. I think it would have been cool. But so Henry takes Christopher to the burn site. And I really love what happens here. And the two of us being moms, I think that we can appreciate this a whole lot, because I thought that all Henry was going to do was give Christopher a lecture. What did you think when they walked to the burn site and he started talking about time and work? Did you think that all that was going to happen was a lecture?
Just just give me the facts and let's talk about what really happened here. And come clean with everything.
Oh, you thought that Henry was going to ask for him to come clean and tell him exactly what happened.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that.
That's not in Henry's character.
You don't think so?
Oh,
Nah,
I
he
think
doesn't
so.
do lectures. He does examples.
Interesting. He doesn't do lectures. He does examples. Well, that's what it turned into. You're going to have to try every day. No shortcuts, no running. And I thought, okay, Henry, ease up. Give the guy a break. But then he says, Rachel's not the only one who believes in you, and I will be beside you every day as long as you need me to. And that is the perfect way to say, yes, you did something wrong. Yes, you need to take responsibility. Yes, you need to make it right, but you're not by yourself.
And they have been estranged and at odds as father and son. And this was a nice way of Henry bringing it around to their closeness. And we're a team, and I'm with you, son.
And it's never too late to come home.
Right, right.
Oh, here's what we want for our kids. For them to never feel alone, and for them to always know that it's never too late to come home.
The moms know that.
The moms know that.
Right.
And we're teaching it to the Mini Heartie.
I'll learn eventually.
You'll learn eventually. Now the sad part of Christopher's involvement. Joseph. I am speechless when it comes to Joseph.
It's so out of character.
It is. It is completely out of character. It shows how angry Joseph is at this whole situation.
And it wasn't technically Christopher's fault. He just covered it up.
That's a really good point. Yeah. Christopher did not set the fire. He worked for the company that did set the fire, and he was ordered to cover it up, but he walked straight up to the can fields, and Minnie turned around and thanked him and said, "It was very hard what you did today, and thank you what you did." And he's apologizing profusely, holds his hand out, and Joseph turned his back on him and couldn't forgive him. I wrote in my notes, bad Joseph.
Yes, bad.
Joseph.
Go to the kennel.
And then talk about the pupil teaching the master. This was brilliant, what they did with Cooper. Here, I'm going to have Grandma Heartie read what Coop says.
How come you didn't shake Mr. Hughes's hand? He did the right thing. To forgive is to restore yourself.
And to forgive is to restore yourself was a quote from Joseph's sermon that previous Sunday.
Ooh, and Joseph knew it.
Ooh.
At least his son was listening to his sermon.
As a father, I guess I'm not ready yet. And Cooper says, what, Lydia?
Is it okay if I am?
Is it okay if I am? We had another situation like this in a previous season in a very opposite situation. Cooper didn't want to go to church anymore. He had stopped believing in God because he couldn't handle Angela's sickness anymore. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And how Angela was blind and the family had suffered so much, and Cooper had lost his faith. And I don't have it quoted, but Cooper asks his father, "Is it okay if I take a break? Is it okay if I don't go to church?" And now an older and wiser Cooper is showing the example to his father and doing the exact opposite and saying, "Is it okay if I'm ready to forgive him, even if you're not?" It kind of reminds me of when the school children were asking Elizabeth if they should be mad at Lucas.
Do you know what I think of? I think of that old saying, and a little child shall lead them.
Bingo.
And that's what they've done here.
That's exactly what they've done here. Cooper is leading his father by example, only he ain't so little anymore.
He's taller than Joseph.
He's taller than Joseph.
But in Joseph's eyes, he is.
Yep. In Joseph's eyes, he'll always be his little boy.
Right.
Joseph very kindly and very maturely said, "You're a better man than I am. Near electric yet." But he did the right thing. He's not embittering his son against them. He is letting Cooper learn those lessons that he's teaching from the pulpit. And he is not stopping him from putting them into practice just because he's not ready. And I think that is the sign of a good father, even if his personal feelings. I'm still mad at him for not forgiving Christopher.
Turning his back on him.
Turning his back on Christopher. That was sad, but
cruel.
It was cruel, yes. But the fact that he is not ready to forgive yet, but he's encouraging his son to forgive, if he feels ready. I think that's beautiful.
Mhm.
What do you think about that as a mom,
I agree.
grandma?
I agree. I think that was very big of the dad to do that, because he could have just gotten madder.
Okay, two more things I want to talk about, and they both start with L. Lucas and LJ. So, Lucas's next move. He's talking about re-election. We hear the quip that Edwin is upset that Lucas has to govern instead of just campaign for his re-election. But two times, it's talked about him doing something else. First, Elizabeth says, "You'll succeed in whatever you do next." And then when Lucas is practicing with Maisie and he's complaining that he could get 10 things done outside of government in the time that it takes him to do one thing inside the government, Maisie says something very interesting. Here, Mini Heartie, I want you to read this.
Learn to love the game, and if you can't, find another game.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, Grandma Heartie, what's Lucas's next move if he doesn't do another term as governor? What do you think he's going to do next?
Go to the other city where his lady love is and ask her to marry him, and they fly off to Paris.
Fly off to Paris. Yeah, it would still be a ship to Paris.
Or a hot air balloon.
No, been there, done that with Elizabeth. He's not going to do an air balloon with Edie.
I think that he's gonna quit governing, because they wouldn't put all the Easter eggs if he wasn't gonna quit governing.
He needs to take a trip and marry Edie, and then they could come back and she could be the governor's wife and do whatever she does, and he could be the governor still and the hero, one of the heroes of the story.
One thing is definitely for sure. Edie would make a tremendous governor's wife.
Absolutely.
Elizabeth was not ready to be a governor's wife. Edie would make a wonderful governor's wife. Now, we hope that in addition to Nathan dropping to one knee and popping a certain question, we're hoping that Lucas and Edie make up, because there was no sign of her in this episode, sadly. I think that they might have Lucas and Edie make up and have Nathan and Elizabeth get engaged in the same episode. Now, I could be wrong, but I mean, the next episode is the finale. So if we're going to tie all the knots, so to speak, and tighten up all the loose ends, then we're going to have two couples taking big steps in the same episode.
Yeah, well, what an episode that's going to be.
Except then there's going to be an even bigger question somehow.
What's that?
I don't know. I know. It's the finale.
Oh, the cliffhanger. What's the cliffhanger going to be? Now, will the cliffhanger be about one of the couples?
Or will it still be hanging on to Pioneer Electric somehow?
No, that's over. I think that's over.
Or
that's been taken care of.
Or who tried to kill Christopher? That could be it.
Or who ran them off the road? Yeah, maybe. If it's somebody that they know.
But the big storylines are the two relationships. I mean, you have to know that.
Now that Pioneer Electric and National Insurance are done for.
That's right. And that's who we care about. We care about the couples, and we want them to be happy.
Yes, we do. All right. My thought is, I think that Lucas could move on if he does not become governor, because actually keeping him in the cast when the governor is supposed to be in Capital City full-time has been kind of a challenge. So if he chose not to be the governor again for a second term, number one, he would be a lot less testy because being the governor has made him not without reason, but it's made him very testy, and he's had to do a lot of things and make a lot of decisions under very stressful circumstances. But if he does not become the governor for a second term, I think he's going to have to start his own business, and it's going to have to be a huge enterprise that makes him the first citizen of Hope Valley, because he can't be the governor, but he could be the first citizen of Hope Valley, and then Edie could be the first citizen's wife. But the biggest thing is, I don't know what that enterprise would be. It could be Hope Valley's first factory, but we don't really want a factory in Hope Valley, because then that brings a whole other set of problems. What are some?
He could be a land developer.
He could be a land developer.
Yeah, we've had, some stuff with the land, and he could just start developing. And some of the burned out spots, they could build houses. Remember, they were talking about that.
Mm-hmm.
So he could do that.
He could be a lawyer.
He could be a lawyer, because Judge Avery was the prosecutor, but he's usually the judge. So, but we already have Edie as a lawyer.
Yeah, I mean, a lawyer and a lawyer go pretty well together.
They could start their own firm.
And then the arguments are going to be super hard.
Oh, man. I'm trying to think of a big business that it's not near water, so it couldn't be a shipyard. Yeah, I don't know. It would have to be big. I would have to do some research on big businesses in the 20s. I know that factories were a big thing that were sprouting up, but he could become a trader. He could buy a ship. He doesn't live next to the water, so he can't run a shipyard, but he could become a trader. So he could become that kind of businessman.
That's an interesting idea.
Mm-hmm. But that's a little too close to Elizabeth's father. Elizabeth's father is a shipping tycoon.
He could become a farmer or a rancher.
I don't think it's big enough. He could become a horse breeder, though.
There you go.
They make a lot of money.
Then he would learn how to catch the horses.
He would have to do a lot of learning if he became a horse breeder. So yes, he could be a businessman from the land, a very nature-driven businessman. I don't know. The possibilities are endless, so we'll have to see. And let's talk about somebody really quickly that the possibilities are not endless for. Okay, I have to talk about something that you said, Mom. When LJ was complaining about the fact that all of the other boys were going to Parsons Peak, you said, and I quote, "How old does this kid think he is? 15?"
That's what I said, all right.
So expand on that, please.
Well, he's growing up, so it's natural that he would think that he would put himself on the same level as at least the teenagers, if not, adults.
She's speaking from experience, because my 5 brothers are all much older than I am. So when I was a little girl, they were all teenagers. So yeah. She knows what that's like.
It was crazy. But he's definitely keyed into the society, and he thinks he's 10 to 15 years older than what he really is. And he's a little bit spoiled. Well, and so he thinks he can do whatever he wants.
He is his mother's only son.
Right.
So, Lydia, even if LJ didn't have diabetes, would his mother let him go?
It's really dangerous up there. And knowing you, if we were in a time like that, you probably would not let me go up there if I was LJ's age, because you would be really worried about all the dangers and what if I would fall, what if I would get hurt, what if I would do this, what if I would do that.
Okay, yeah. You get the
And
idea.
they didn't have the medical advances that we have today that we can allow someone with diabetes to have a normal life. And so it was huge. That's a huge stumbling block.
Yeah, but see, even if he didn't have diabetes, he's 6 or 7 years old.
He still can't go.
An overnight camping trip to the highest peak of the valley? No. No way. Not in this lifetime, LJ.
He thinks he's 20. He thinks he gets to do whatever he wants to because he's his mother's favorite and only child.
Yes. Yeah. So I didn't think that Elizabeth should have been so hard on herself, saying, I've always told parents to let their children try things and fail and to let them be bold. Would you let your kids stay overnight in the highest point of the valley, even if he didn't have diabetes? No. You think that you would let him if he didn't, but you wouldn't. And I thought that Nathan coming in and saying, let's go camping in the backyard. We'll make cowboy stew. We'll sleep under the stars. I thought that was incredible of him. And then he apologizes for the idea not working. No.
Sounds like fun to me.
Sounds like fun to me,
especially with Nathan.
I'll do it. Not good. Well, Hearties Hotline After Dark here. So, yes, I think that the consensus here is that LJ has some growing up to do. And yes, life is going to be different, but by the time he is 14 years old, who knows? Maybe there will be a portable cooler by then. And I mean, he's the little kid who wants to tag along after everybody. And like I said, my mom is used to that. But she also reminded me, when you're this age, you'll get to do that too. So when I was 8 years old, I was not hiking to a huge mountaintop and spending the night with no adult supervision. No, I wasn't. And there were things that I had to wait for, even though I saw my older brothers doing it. And that's what LJ needs to realize. He needs to realize that even though he has a debilitating circumstance that might keep him from doing things, he can find a way to do things. He just has some growing up to do.
That's a
I'm
good
still
ending.
waiting on dating.
Everyone in this house is still waiting on dating. Nobody's old enough to be dating in this house yet, except your father and me. I have been trying to get this one to go on a date.
Been there, done that.
Yeah. Her Jack and her Nathan, my dad.
What a hero.
He was her hero.
That's true.
All right, Hearties. Well, we hope that you feel like a hero. We hope that you know how valued you are. And we hope that you know how loved and how important you are to someone. Even if you don't know, you always are important to someone. And especially as we have Easter drawing closer, I hope that you will feel renewal and new beginning and life starting over again. And we just want to say, from our family to yours, Happy Easter. And we'll see you next time. Bye, Hearties.
Bye.